Aloha, and thank you for joining us on today's ANA webinar entitled E-Commerce, Developing Indigenous Communities Through Online Business. A little bit about the Administration for Native Americans, or ANA. ANA promotes self-sufficiency for Native Americans by providing discretionary funding for community-based projects and training and technical assistance to eligible tribes and Native organizations. You can find out more about ANA by going to their website at www.acf.hhs.gov/programs/ANA. This webinar is hosted by the ANA Training and Technical Assistance Center of the Pacific, Ka'anani'au, and my name is Napua Harbottle, and I will be your host. Let's take a look at what we'll be discussing on today's webinar. We will talk about how e-commerce works and give you a general overview of that. And then Harmony Williams from Sustainable Molokai will be joining us to talk about how her nonprofit is using e-commerce to benefit the Molokai community. At the end of the presentation, we will open it up for questions and answers. So please, if you have questions during the presentation, go ahead and type them into the question box, and we will get to your questions at the end of the presentation during our question and answer section, and we'll be answering the questions in the order in which they were received. All right, so let's get into talking a little bit about how e-commerce works. First, I want to talk about the different types of transactions that we use today for obtaining goods and services. So, of course, there's the bartering system, where the transaction is trading goods and services for other goods and services. And then there is commerce, where business or transactions are done where currency is exchanged for goods and services. And then there's e-commerce, which is what we'll be focusing on today, where a virtual exchange is made for goods and services. So let's take a closer look at how this virtual exchange happens. First, I want to talk about maybe looking at the benefits of doing business or e-commerce through your online business. Let's see. The primary benefit of having an online business would be convenience. Customer can make a purchase from anywhere at any time, and there's no need to travel and no lines to stand in. A customer also has access to products and services outside of their normal radius of shopping centers, malls, and local businesses. There are also drawbacks to doing business online. For those who don't know how to set up an online account or are afraid to share their personal information electronically, purchasing online products could be a challenge. There's also the risk of personal information being hacked. We've all heard of incidences of big name stores being hacked, compromising customer information, including account numbers and passwords. Wait time to receive your order can take up to 2 weeks or more, which limits this method from doing business to non-perishable items. And then lastly, you can try something on to see if it fits or see if it functions the way that you need it to, or inspect its durability when you shop online. So many of us have placed online orders and have experienced both the benefits and drawbacks of purchasing goods and services online. But because it's so convenient, more and more people are opting to purchase products through a virtual process, meaning that much of what happens between ordering a product from a website and then when that product is delivered to the customer's doorstep is pretty much invisible to the customer. The invisible part of the process, or the virtual transaction that happens, is the part that we're going to focus on today. Okay, so if you want to start an online business, the first thing you want to do is to make your website searchable. You should work with a webmaster to create a website that has an HTTPS URL. This is a secure website URL, and will assure anyone who finds your website to make them feel secure in entering personal information when placing their order. You then want to make sure to include keywords for finding your website as the keywords that work for each product or category of products in the product description, so that not only your website is searchable, but the items on your website are also searchable as well. The most popular search engine is Google. So one way to optimize the number of hits your web page gets is to make sure that your website contains the different keywords your customer will be searching for. In the industry, this is known as search engine optimization, or SEO. The main thing to know about having an SEO website is that it requires constant updating, so Google doesn't dismiss your website as being inactive. This will require staff to keep content fresh. Okay, the next thing you're going to want to do is to make sure that a customer who visits your website is able to place an order. You will need to make sure that you update your online inventory to reflect what is available for purchase, and also update the product description when necessary and any change in price. Now your website is ready to do business. To make your website into a business, you want to set up an online marketplace. It is highly recommended that you use an existing platform to do this. Trying to create your own platform can be quite costly and complex. Existing platforms provide your customer with a way to browse the items on your website, select the items that they want to purchase by providing a shopping cart, come with mechanisms to collect payment by offering payment options, and provide confirmation on an order once it is placed. This platform also provides a tracking number and resources for addressing any inquiries a customer might have about their purchase. Using third-party platforms are a good fit for business and don't have the are a good fit for the businesses that don't have capacity to maintain servers, which can be costly as well. Examples of third-party platforms are eBay, Amazon, and Etsy. These sites allow you to sell your products in their popular marketplaces, and for smaller businesses, you might not need your own website. Both options have a cost attached to them. Some charge a monthly fee and some take a percentage per transaction. And then the last phase on the business end of e-commerce is filling and delivering the order. Some of you may have your inventory stocked in a stock room that you can access easily. So in those instances, when you receive an order, you simply go to your stock room, package up the item for shipping, and then take it to your nearest UPS store or FedEx store and ship it out to the customer. For maybe larger businesses or businesses with larger inventory, you might use a fulfillment center. Now, these can be a warehouse or a distribution center where you are responsible for making sure that your inventory or your products are constantly stocked at that center so that they can use their staff to package and send your orders out. The distribution center or the fulfillment center will also make sure that they get your items off and ship them out through one of the popular shipping vendors. And from there, of course, the package automatically should appear on your doorstep within a week or two of ordering it. All right, so that was a general overview of how e-commerce works in the national marketplace. I now want to turn the time over to Harmony Williams Pastrana, who works for Sustainable Molokai. She's going to be sharing a little bit about a marketplace that she has on a small island of Molokai. So Harmony is the executive director for Sustainable Molokai. She manages the Molokai Food Sovereignty Program, including the management of their food hub and mobile market, as well as the coordinator of the island's farm to school and school garden network. She became involved in the formation of the organization shortly after moving to Molokai in 2008, and she has served in various capacities there. Harmony's background includes environmental planning with a wide variety of communities across Hawaii and the Pacific. She has a bachelor's in history from Yale University and a master's in urban and regional planning from the University of Hawaii at Manoa. Harmony, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Aloha, everyone. So yes, again, my name's Harmony, and I'm with Sustainable Molokai. And I'd just like to start by kind of explaining the name of our organization and our logo. So Sustainable Molokai, that's probably pretty obvious where that comes from. But for those of you not familiar with the Hawaiian language, the word Aina is actually embedded within that English word sustainable. And Aina is a super important word in the Hawaiian language. Basically, it means land or that which feeds us. And so the organization itself has really made that part of our foundation of really recognizing the importance of taking care of the land and also the relationship between land and people. And then Molokai is a funny one because it can be pronounced Molokai or Molokai. And it's actually an ongoing debate on the island, kind of permanently. And the local family that I married into says Molokai. So that's what I go with, but either one is correct. And so just to give a quick overview of where the island of Molokai is located within the geography of Hawaii. Here it is right here in the middle, or in the Pico. And as you can see, it's a rather, one of the smaller islands. And some brief kind of just basic facts about it. So it's about 260 square miles. The population is, as you can see, pretty low, about 7,500, and it's been pretty consistent that way for several decades. Of all the major Hawaiian islands, it is the one with the largest Native Hawaiian ancestry, about 62%. And the reason that it's so rural to this day is not by accident. There really is a long, proud history of fighting development. You know, I feel like people there have watched what's happened to Oahu and Maui. Probably a lot of you are familiar with Waikiki and places like that. And people have really said, you know, we want to keep this place different, which is awesome and really enables it to be a very culturally based place. But as you can imagine, the challenges with that are in finding economic development strategies that fit or align with those values. And as you can also guess, over the years, plenty of outsiders have come in with ideas and proposals. And so Molokai has done an awesome job of playing defense and really keeping those ideas at bay. However, in the last, probably within the last decade or a little over, there's also been a movement to kind of pivot towards offense and to really be proactive in deciding what kind of economic development strategies we can implement. So briefly, I just wanted to share a picture of my family. So that's me on the right and my husband, Josh, on the left, and our two daughters. And in the top right corner is the founder of our organization, Malia Akutagawa, also born and raised on Molokai, a lawyer and just really an amazing person who really had the vision to say, you know, it's time to be proactive. Let's start a nonprofit and start implementing some of these ideas that we know people have. So we were officially incorporated as a nonprofit in 2010. And our mission has really been to honor the historic legacy of Aina Momona, or abundant land, which was one of the historical nicknames of the island, and to also weave it with the implementation of modern sustainability strategies. So when we started this nonprofit, I was fortunate enough to, you know, to be part of the formation. Malia and I, well, as I said, or as Napua said, my background is in environmental and community planning. So I had a lot of ideas. I didn't necessarily have I definitely didn't have all of the cultural background and grounding. So it was really great. Malia and I sat down and said, okay, if we're going to talk about addressing sustainability for the island, where do we start? Right? You can't do it all at once. And so I remember brainstorming out a list of all the different kind of topic areas that should be addressed, that could be addressed. And then it morphed into this, what we named the sustainability wheel. And it has significance in that, of course, in the center, we have the Aina and the people connected again, and also signifying that everything we do has to really be based on that. And then the 12 spokes of the wheel are purposely put in the shape of a wheel just to show how interconnected everything is. And so from that, we said, okay, where should we start? Which topic should we start with? And when we did start in 2010 and 11, we took on a couple different areas. Renewable energy, financial literacy, and our food security program is the one that I kind of took on personally. And so another thing that we said right from the get-go was that we really wanted everything we did to be community-based and community-driven, not just us dreaming up ideas and trying to implement them. And so we've done assessments for each of those spokes that we've kind of started to address. So the first community assessment we did was for agriculture. Most of the research and the work was done in 2011, and then our findings were published in 2012. Some of the reasons that we started with food, I listed a few here, but obviously this historic legacy of food production that Molokai has. That's both with fish ponds as well as crops that are grown on the land, like sweet potato and taro. Of course, food is just a huge issue for all of Hawaii and probably lots of places in the world. But being an island in the middle Pacific, where 80 to 90% of our food is brought in by a barge, obviously puts us at a huge risk. And again, back to that idea of everything being connected. Food we saw is just, first it's something that we all are affected by every day. It affects how we feel, what kind of energy level we have, and of course our health. And we saw it as a real, a good fit for an economic driver that fit with the rural kind of values of the island. And of course the cultural piece, the more culturally based foods we could grow, then we could keep that piece strong as well. So we did the assessment. Basically, we did a couple of things. We reached out to every farmer we could find, as well as our extension agents and anyone in the agricultural realm. In the end, we did 36 interviews. We also reached out to store owners and distributors and tried to just get a sense of how they felt about, bringing food in on the barge, if they wanted to buy local, what the roadblocks were. And then we also surveyed the population as a whole. And so I think we ended up with over 300 surveys. And the overwhelming sentiment was, yes, we want more local food. But the more important data that I think we got was really from the farmers themselves. Like, what do you need to help us increase agricultural production on island? So the key findings, the first one that I listed is probably pretty obvious, but it's just repeated over and over. Like, we know these barges are not going to come forever. We've already had interruption in barge service pretty regularly from hurricanes and other natural disasters. And you see it. I mean, you walk into the grocery stores when the barge hasn't come for a week and the shelves are almost empty. So how do we deal with that? And so the two main ideas that came out of that were, one, to really increase our opportunities for agricultural education and training, and then two, to create some kind of hub that would really allow farmers to farm, and then the hub would take care of all that other stuff, the aggregating, branding, marketing, distribution. And of course, our first goal was to distribute on island, but then if there was a farmer that had more than the island could take, then coordinating the off-island distribution as well. So that really launched us into our what we named the Food Sovereignty Program. Of course, it took a little bit of time to write grants and get the capacity to really, get the program going. Thankfully, our first grant came from First Nations Development Institute in January of 2014. And that allowed me to come onto staff full time and really focus on the program. So the first thing I did was form a steering committee of farmers and say, okay, what is our framework? And really what we came up with was 4 goals and 2 programs. So you can see the goals here. They might seem really simple, but it just really helped us to kind of break it down into kind of more tangible tasks. So of course, increase local production by working with farmers and doing the trainings, increase local consumption by doing outreach and education, and really find a way to easily connect that production and consumption. And then number 4, to grow our next generation of local farmers, local eaters, and local leaders. And the 2 programs that we kind of dove into are our Farm to School program and our Food Hub and Mobile Market, which I'm going to be talking about now. Oh, before I do, I wanted to take one little note here. You know, what we found is that consumption and production are kind of like a chicken and an egg kind of thing, right? So if we just focus on one and you have all this production, but nobody wants to eat the food you're growing, you have a problem. And vice versa. If everybody's demanding local food and no one's growing it, then there's a problem too. So kind of working on both sides at once. Obviously, Farm to School has been a great way to, you know, to really focus on our keiki and our children, and not just to develop their like understanding and awareness and taste buds for local food, but also to then influence their families. And then along with kind of the broader outreach and education, one of the things we did was, you know, we really looked at kalo or taro, which is the Hawaiian staple crop. And it's something that Molokai has traditionally grown a lot of, and there are quite a few farmers still currently growing. But it's not something that a lot of people eat as regularly as they want to or could. And it's a really healthy alternative to white rice and breads and things like that. So yeah, so we did a campaign specifically on increasing demand for kalo. And one of the things we did was create some fun social media videos. And so I'm going to show you that, and just FYI, the star is my husband, Josh, who you saw earlier.
Hey, you know it's me. I is one Carlo farmer. Every time you buy Carlo, your family gonna be super duper healthy, and you're supporting us farmers. And it's ono. Eat more Carlo.
Little interlude, and if you're interested in seeing more videos like that, you can go to our Sustainable Molokai Facebook page, and we have a few more of those. It's always fun to drag your significant other into your work, right? So, okay, so on to the project. Okay, so basically our timeline was that, as I said, we started in 2014. We, along with our assessment, we talked to the farmers and said, okay, what products do you have? Besides for personal consumption, but that you might be able to sell. And so we had a list of that, and then we went to our local elementary schools and found that the USDA funded snack program called the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program was actually the easiest way to get local produce into our schools. So that's how we started. And I do have a note there, we did that without any infrastructure. Basically it was with our personal trucks and some coolers in the back, driving around to farms and then driving to the schools. So we did that for a little while, and the next thing we did was our mobile market. And so the idea itself really came out of, you know, my personal research and networking, as well as our steering committee. You know, I would get ideas, bring it to the steering committee, and we kind of talk out what we thought would work or not. And so, yeah, I just wanted to emphasize this is not like a brand new idea. There's plenty of people that when they hear it, are like, wow, how did you think of this? So I did not come up with the idea, but I haven't seen anyone else in Hawaii yet that is using this exact model. So the basic concept is, you know, connecting our local farmers or producers with our local consumers through an online platform. And yeah, so basically farmers first tell us what they have, and then the customers go online and shop. You know, similar to what Napua explained earlier or talked about earlier with like an Amazon shopping site. And then Sustainable Molokai adds a markup to the price that the farmers set. And I'm going to talk a little more about the details of that. But first, just what we needed to get started. The three things that we really had secured was number one, funding for salaries. Fortunately, we got a grant from USDA through their community food projects. And it was really just two of us to start out, myself and my coworker, Jamie. Then we also got funding from a private foundation here in Hawaii called Ulupono, which enabled us to buy our fun mobile market van. And then we actually got a separate grant to put the refrigeration unit on it. So we had to get it retrofitted. So you can see a picture on the left. So when we first got it, and the picture on the right, my daughter trying to get inside, is with the refrigeration unit on top. And then, of course, we needed a place to aggregate the orders. And so fortunately, somebody let us use their packaging shed, which we used for free until we added a chill because our volume got higher and we needed to store things overnight. So at that point, we started paying for the gas to run the generator to run the chill. So the way the mobile market flows on a weekly basis is that by Sunday, we need to know what the farmers have for that week. And so we have some farmers that go right on the website themselves and just enter it themselves. And it could be, I have 20 bags of tomatoes, I have 2 pounds of herbs, I have 5 bunches of kale, whatever they have that week. We have other farmers that call us, or we call them on Sunday night. A few of them text, but whatever works. So that's set by Sunday night. And then Monday morning, our online marketplace opens. And so the online marketplace is open Monday morning till Tuesday evening at 6. It's really fun to sit there Monday morning and watch all the orders start coming in. We actually have people that set their alarms to make sure they get in early and get things before they sell out. So that's fun to see. And then the software that we have, which I am going to explain in a little bit, but it does this really great thing, which is when the market closes at Tuesday night at 6, it automatically generates a pick list and emails it directly to the farmers. So again, there's some farmers that we call or text their orders to. Wednesday, the farmers go harvest or make their products or their whatever it is they're producing. And then we do a combination of either driving to their farms or they drop off to us. Thursday morning, we get up early, go to the packaging shed, and we have all of the orders printed out. And so we each take an order and then put together all the items that are then placed out around the packaging shed. And then Friday, and then after we aggregate all the orders, then we have 2 delivery spots that we have pickup places basically. And then Friday, we wrap up with the accounting for the week. So it's a little shot of what our delivery locations look like. As I said, we currently have 2 drop-off or pickup places, one in the middle of the island in town, and then one on the west end. And we're hoping to add more as we can. Oh, and I should add, sorry, I think this is a good place to add. As far as accepting payments, we have a couple options. So people that place their orders online, they can also enter their credit cards into the website. And then on Friday is when we run their credit card. So that way they have the opportunity to either add things to their order when they come to pick up, or if there's any need for a refund or things like that, then we can do that instead of at just one time, instead of running their credit card twice. And as you can see here, all this stuff that's out on the tables is extra. So the farmers give us what their pick list said, and then if they have extra, they can send it with us for point of sale. Customers that do not want to put their credit card online, or they just want to come and shop without placing an order, can do that as well. And so at the drop-offs, we accept cash, check, and we also have a point of sale terminal that accepts credit cards and EBT or SNAP. So here's what I would say have been kind of the highlights or successes of our 2.5 years so far of running. So we have over 20 producers signed up now. Approximately 15 sell different items per week. And I point that out because one of the nice things about our site is you don't have to sell every week. If something happens to your crop, or if you go on vacation or whatever it is, it's okay that you don't have anything to sell that week. Which is a huge thing for beginning farmers, right? Because if you try, like we've heard farmers say, I'm really good at growing carrots, I want to sell them to the store. And then they talk to the store says, okay, we want this amount, we'll give you this price, get it here every week, or else your contract is going to be canceled, which is what has happened, you know. And for us, if you have it, great. If you don't, that's okay too. And the other thing is that we allow the farmers to name the price that they need, and then we add the 30% markup, kind of as our revenue. So the example I showed here is, you know, if a farmer wants $5 per pound of taro, then we add our markup and sell it for $6.50. And then at the end of the week, the accounting, of course, goes, they get that $5, we keep the $1.50. And as I noted, about 50% of our producers are Native Hawaiian. And I should note that our producers, the reason we use the word producers is because they're not all farmers. We also have local grass-fed beef. We have shrimp farms. So one of our shrimp farmers sells through us. We have value-added products, people that do sauces and teas and baked goods and things like that. On the customer side, we have over 600 customers signed up, which is still kind of amazing to me. But that includes people that order even one time, right? They might be visiting, or yeah, so it's a pretty substantial customer list. But our average orders are usually between 80 to 100 orders per week. And it increases in the winter. Both the production side is better in the winter in Hawaii, which I know is backwards for mainland size, but and then also we have some more snowbirds, or people that come and stay for the winter. So we have more orders then. Our EBT sales have been increasing. We recently got a USDA grant to offer double bucks, or it's also called the Double Up food bucks. Basically, the way that works is that if any produce, any local produce is worth, you can get it half off, basically. So if somebody orders $100 worth of produce, they come to pick up, they swipe their EBT card, and only $50 gets charged, and the other $50 comes from the USDA grant. So the farmers still get the same amount. And so today, currently, we're averaging about $3,000 in sales per week, and about 25% of those are EBT sales. Challenges. So first off, software. We did initially start out with one called Local Orbit, which was good. There was, you know, they're a really great organization. What we found though is that they really seem to be more well suited for wholesale distribution. So we then tried out Local Food Marketplace, and that just fit our setup better. Yeah, one of the nice things is, like I said, the farmer set the price, then the markup just gets added automatically. Where Local Orbit, their markup situation was a little bit different, and our accounting was always a little bit off. So, and Local Food Marketplace just has really great customer service. So whenever we have an issue, they're super available and super helpful. Customers, you know, when we started, most of our customers were not local, and they were, you know, people with money that just came and you know, were excited to have fresh produce, which was great. However, that wasn't really the purpose of our program, right? Our program is to rebuild our local food system. And so, you know, we've done a lot of different things to try and address that. One of them is to offer more culturally based foods, right? So like the kalo, the poi. We also have, you know, so we really try and market that to emphasize things that local people eat more often, you know, that are familiar with. So that's helped a lot. And also our low income population, the double bucks has helped increase that. Producers, yeah, bottom line, we just don't have enough supply. I mean, like I was saying, the orders kind of just fly in that first hour or two. And the reason is because things sell out really quickly. There's just certain items that we just don't have enough of, you know, so we've tried sharing that information with the farmers and encouraging them to grow more and working with them on production planning. But a lot of it is, you know, you can't make someone grow stuff. So we have a couple different strategies that we're working on with that. And then, of course, the last thing, the financial viability. So I just gave a few numbers here just to give you an idea of kind of what we're looking at. So if we had $3,000 per week times 50 weeks, about $150,000 that comes through our marketplace. 30% of that stays with Sustainable Molokai, and the other, of course, goes directly to the farmers. So our revenue, we're looking at about $45,000 per year. And I have to say our credit card fees are pretty substantial. And that is because we have so many options, right? If we only had one option, if it was just online, if it was just credit cards in the marketplace, they would be less. But at this point, they're I say over five to 10,000 a year. Yeah, substantial. So, anyways, but my point being, let's say we bring in $40,000 in revenue. Yeah, we want to. That's not enough, right? I mean, to support. At this point, we have one full-time mobile market manager, and we have 2 part-time assistants that help with the aggregating and the deliveries. Not to mention all the things associated with our software and our van and our gas and all the bags and totes and all those kind of supplies. So we are still largely grant dependent, and obviously one of our main strategies has been to increase our production. And so I'd like to wrap up with just a demo of how our site works. Okay, so as you can see here, okay, so as I told you earlier, the market itself is open Monday, Tuesday, right? And so at this point, it's Thursday, back on Molokai, the van is out, delivering the goods. So the online marketplace is not currently open. So you see the note at the top that shows the order period closed, the next ordering. Oh yeah, this week is special because next week's Thanksgiving, right? So we're gonna let people order Saturday, Sunday, and then deliver on Tuesday. So they have their produce for the holiday. So as you scroll down, you can see some of the different products offered. And it's exciting to see new products come online. And then, I wonder if this one, oh yeah, so we also have, like I said, our livestock co-op that does grass-fed beef. They put all their different cuts on here. Our shrimp farm, they have their shrimp. We have mochi. So those are some of our value added. And then we have ava, some of the teas. And these are really nice rubs you can use to barbecue or put on your meats. Piave flour, which is a gluten-free flour made from a local product. Local honey, dried bananas. We also have vegetable and plant starts. Quite a few of those. And then, oh yeah, so this is what I was hoping. So at the bottom here, you see this sold out. So all these things at the bottom is everything that's sold out this week. Quite a bit, yeah. So you can see the demand is still significantly higher than the supply. Click on that. So yeah, and so another thing I'd like to point out is just that you can, one of the great things about this software is that you can click on the farmer or the producer, and there'll be a little bio about who they are, how they grow. Yeah, this is a cute one. They actually do fundraising for their son, so he can do different events. Yeah, so you can just read about whatever they want to share with you. We don't have any rules as far as it has to be organic or anything like that. We just ask that farmers disclose their growing practices so customers are aware of that. So I think that's basically what I have, and I will pass it back to Nicole.
Wow, thank you, Harmony. That's an awesome program that you have to offer your community there on Molokai. Thank you for sharing all that it takes to put something like this together. I know there are a lot of people who are on this webinar and listening in who may just have the idea of wanting to do something like this for their community. And there are also those who are already implementing some kind of marketplace to benefit their communities by offering fresh and local produce to their members. So thank you so much for going through the process that you went to put this program together, and also to provide us with some insight of how this program is helping to make your community healthier and more self-sustaining community altogether. So I just want to touch base on making e-commerce or using e-commerce as part of your A&E project. For those of you who are grantees, just remember that if you plan to implement e-commerce into your A&E project, that the revenue generated from that will be considered program income. The definition of program income is right here on your screen. Basically, it's any income that comes from the sale of commodities or items fabricated under an award. So just know that with program income, you are able to use it to expand your work plan, but make sure that you're following the cost principles, which may require you to get prior approval from your program specialist to make certain purchases. Also, pay close attention to 45 CFR Part 75.305, which pretty much says that you must disperse funds from program income before requesting additional cash payments or drawdowns. So in other words, your program income should be spent before you ask for any more cash payments from your grantor, or A&E in this case. So just a little bit of advice for those of you who have A&E projects and are planning to implement a program like this. Okay, so now we want to open it up for questions and answers. Again, hopefully some of you have been, actually some of you have been typing your questions into the question box. And I will be taking those questions in the order that they were received. If you have a follow-up question, if you could please immediately type that question into the question box so that we can answer them accordingly. Okay, so our first question is from Bonnie, and her question is, where was your video displayed, and was it on regular TV or elsewhere? Harmony?
That's a good sign. That means you must have liked it. So no, it was primarily shown on Facebook. The guy that actually produced it used Vimeo. I believe you can also search on Vimeo. But if you go to Facebook and go to Sustainable Molokai and go to the videos, then you should be able to see them all there.
All right, great. Our next question is from Viliami. How much revenue would you need to make in order to be self-sustaining for your program expenses?
Good question. We have done so many pro formas and projections trying to find that answer. You know, it's tricky because as the production increases and if we add more stops, then our costs increase, right? So I'd say our target at this point is about $300,000 per year in sales, so double. But it's hard to say if that would be like the golden number, because we do need a new truck and we do need to, you know, we do want to expand our number of stops. So might need more, obviously we'll need more staff to get all that together. So yeah.
Okay, Viliami has another question. Do your meats get USDA stamps? If so, is that something that is done by the farmers, or is there a central meat processing facility on Molokai?
Good question. Yes, all of our meat is USDA certified. There is an amazing Molokai livestock co-op on island, and they have honestly one of the most state-of-the-art facilities in the state, which is amazing for our little island. And you saw those different cuts, that were on the site. And sorry if I went kind of quickly, but they do all kinds of cuts, and they certify everything. But the meat does come from various ranchers around the island.
Okay, next question is from Lama. Do you take a percentage of goods sold, and how does that work for a nonprofit?
Sure. So basically, we do a markup. As I said, so we let the farmers name their price. So let's say they said I want $1 for this one bag of carrots. Then we would put it out for sale for $1.30, right, with a 30% markup. And then at the end of that week, we would pay the farmer that dollar, and Sustainable Molokai would keep the 30 cents. And so for a nonprofit, I think a lot of it goes back to where your funding's coming from. So I think I have two main answers. One is, as a nonprofit, you're allowed to make profit. The main rule is that no individual can take like the revenue for themselves. So if let's say we made $40,000 this year in profit, I couldn't write that check to myself, right? It has to stay within the nonprofit and go into program expenses. And then the second thing is that it depends on if you have grant funding and what the stipulations are. So I know Napua just mentioned the ANA has stipulations for program income, and our main funder has been USDA, and they have very similar ones. So we have to report all of our program income and then list out the actual program expenses that we use that profit for.
Okay, next question comes from Bonnie. Are there any licensing requirements for your producers, and how do you monitor that?
Good question. Fortunately, my coworker, Jamie Ronzello, is very well versed in FSMA and all the food safety regulations. And my understanding is that at this point, most of the regulations are put on by the person that sells. So for example, if you wanted to sell a product through Costco or any usually large grocery chains, they require you to have like a third-party audit, like a gap audit or something like that. So we, as the seller, do not require that. However, Jamie goes to each farm, meets with each producer before we start selling their product, and she has a handbook with our suggested practices, and just kind of talks them through what's expected and what are the main key things for food safety, right? Making sure they have potable water, making sure that they wash their products. In Hawaii, then we've had a big scare with rat lungworm, and so it's something that we're very aware of and concerned with. And so we kind of, in that example, anybody that grows leafy greens or things that are susceptible to that, we ask both the producer to make sure they wash, and we also tell customers to please wash again before they eat it. And then for other, besides produce, things like value-added products, that is really determined by the Department of Health, and that might vary by state, but in Hawaii, the Department of Health regulates what kind of products must be made in a certified kitchen or with what kind of refrigeration or temperatures, things like that. So we tell each value-added producer, go talk to the Department of Health, and from that they get a what's called a TFE, a temporary food establishment permit, to show that they're following their rules.
Wow, very detailed. Okay, another question from Viliami. How do the chemical producer sales compare to organic producer sales?
We really don't, I'd say 90% of our growers are organic, not certified. Most of them are not certified, but they really try and use organic methods. But there are some crops, especially for the larger producers, who have shared with us that, we try not to use chemicals, but if there's an outbreak of, a certain thing, sometimes we have to spray once in a while to get it under control so we don't lose our whole crop. But it's a pretty small percentage.
Okay, Carol has a question. Does the project have to get general liability insurance, or does each vendor have to provide their own insurance?
Good question. So Sustainable Molokai has pretty extensive general liability insurance, and we've definitely increased it since we started this project. And then each vendor, again, this would be a question that Jamie would know for sure, but I do not believe that they each have to have it.
Okay, and then a second question from Carol. Did you hire an accountant to take care of your financials? You mentioned you hired 3 staff, but you didn't mention an accountant. That would bring up your expenses for the business, right?
Yes, indeed. We finally just hired a really amazing accountant, which has really helped a ton. Jamie and I were doing the bulk of it, and as well as managing our grants and anyways. And then we had a CPA who would do our quarterly reviews and end of the year reviews and our taxes for us. But we were doing the weekly accounting, and we kind of hit the point where we can't expand if we're with doing all the things that we're doing. So we did bring on an accountant about 2 or 3 months ago, and our lives have been much easier and happier.
Accountants certainly do that. Okay, our last question comes from Zena. Do you track sales, profit, etc. on a basic Excel spreadsheet, or is there a recommended software application that you use?
This is actually a funny answer, because I personally love my Excel spreadsheets, and they really help me, kind of do the analysis, right? I can quickly move things around and see, like, what are our sales, what are EBT sales, what's things like that. And so I would give those spreadsheets to our CPA, and he didn't love them as much as I did, because they're pretty complicated. I mean, between all the things, between the website sales versus the point of sale sales, between EBT and credit card. Anyways, it was pretty complicated. So our new accountant has I think he's got done away with my Excel sheets. He uses QuickBooks. I shouldn't say that. I do keep the Excel sheet, but it just has less detail in it now. So we can just do our monthly check-in and look at our key performance indicators without all that detail in there. So yeah, Excel and QuickBooks is the short answer.
Okay, great. That concludes our question and answer segment. Thank you everyone for submitting your questions, and special thanks to Harmony for answering all those questions.
Sorry, can I throw in one last thing that
Sure.
really helps the accounting? Sorry, Local Food Marketplace has some great features as well, and there you can go in there and click on different reports on products and farmers and things like that. So that I want to include that as well.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. So if any of you are thinking about implementing some kind of an e-commerce project, whether it just be an idea or something that you're already heading towards, ANA does offer a program that would support those kinds of projects. It's called the ANA Social and Economic Development Strategies Grant. You can look out for the funding opportunity announcements that would let you know when the grant application season is open and when the grant deadline would, when your application would be due. Again, you can go to www.acf.hhs.gov/ANA to look for those announcements and see when the opening for applications are available. This concludes our webinar for today. So again, thank you all for joining us. I'd like to send a special thanks to Harmony. Here is her contact information if you have any more questions. And then also listed on your screen is the contact information for our TTA provider company. Hopefully all of this information has been helpful and a great resource to those of you listening in. I want to wish you a great day, and again, thank you for joining us. Aloha.